Welcome to this episode of Qaked. Today I made a Kaaba cake to celebrate Eid Ul Adha. Stay tuned to see how I made it. Eid Ul Adha is quickly approaching, which marks the end of Hajj for Muslims every year. My cousin is currently in Mecca completing his Hajj, and I decided to make him a cake that looks like a Kaaba before he left. To begin making this cake, I made 3 6-inch square chocolate cakes in 2-inch pans. I cut off the domes of each cake and put simple syrup on each layer, which I accidentally forgot to record. I started by using a 14-inch drum board for the bottom and put a 6-inch square on top to use for the bottom of the cake. Be sure to have an extra 6-inch square board to use to straight out the top of the cake for later. Put a bit of Swiss meringue buttercream on the board so the cake has something to stick to. Then place the first layer on the board. Use a piping bag filled with buttercream to make a dam around the layer and then fill it in. I use the piping bag to fill it in just to ensure that the layers are all the same height. Make sure the layers are straight and in the middle with each placement. I then used my mini leveler at this point to make sure that the cake was leveled. Scrape down the sides and then put it in the fridge for at least 20 minutes to cool. Last year I was really fortunate to be able to complete Hajj for myself. It was the most incredible experience of my entire life and truly an experience I will never forget. It was so incredible to be around millions of people all over the world, all there for the same purpose, doing the same thing. It was so humbling and so peaceful. I loved every second of it, and inshallah I'll be able to go again. I'm so fortunate to be able to go at such a young age and so thankful. Once cooled, I cut down the sides of each side to make sure that they were within the bottom square board. We don't want any pieces of this cake showing through the ganache when we're done. For those of you who know me, you'll know that there's nothing more that I love more in this world than traveling. I love, 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 love traveling. I love exploring the world. I love meeting new people. I love learning their language and their culture and seeing how they live. It's just so fascinating to me to see how the people live around the world. It's incredible, and they're so far, every country I've been to has been so incredible, and the people are so nice. I've been to 32 countries so far, and as you are watching this video, I'm actually currently in Bali. I'm not while I'm recording this video. My flight is actually in 2 hours, and I'm really last minute recording this, but I'm so excited and I wanted to have a video out before I left, so here you go. I made black ganache for this cake by adding black food gel to the ganache to use to cover the cake. This cake won't be getting any fondant, so I wanted to ensure that the sides were really black and sturdy. Put a generous amount of ganache on top of the cake and put a second 6-inch square board, shiny side down, directly on top, lining it up with the bottom board. I used 2 bench scrapers to line them up, pushing them into the cake from opposite ends at the same time. Do this on both sides until you feel that the boards are perfectly stacked. At this point, you also want to make sure that there's enough space within the cake and the boards to fill it in with the ganache. At this point, you also want to make sure there's enough space between the cake and the boards to fill each side in with ganache. Start filling in the sides of the cake with ganache. The more the better, because the excess will get scraped off anyway. Once your cake is completely covered in ganache, use your bench scraper to scrape down each side of the cake, wiping off the excess ganache as you go. Fill in the holes as you go with ganache and keep repeating this until you have straight edges. You can do this without the top board, but for me this is the easiest way to get straight edges, especially on a square cake. Put the cake in the fridge to cool for about 30 minutes. So in honor of my love for traveling, I've decided to mix my two worlds together and make some travel-inspired cakes. So this will be my very first travel-inspired video. I went to Mecca last year. I will hopefully be making much more travel videos in the future. If you have any suggestions of what I should make into a cake that has inspired you from your travels, please let me know in the comments below. I'll start by making cakes from places that I've been. I have so many ideas and I cannot wait to share them with you. Once cooled, put a palette knife into a glass of hot water to warm up the knife. Wipe it off with a paper towel and then immediately use it to cut off the top board, gently melting the chocolate with your knife. Go all the way around the cake with the knife right under the top board until the top board comes right off. Fill in the remainder of the top with some ganache and straighten the edges as best as you can. Remember, you can always cool your cake in the fridge first and come back to the straight edges with a hot knife or a hot finger to smooth it out. Because there's so many places in the world that I'd love to visit, I don't normally go back to the same place over and over again. But if there's anywhere in the world that I would go repeatedly, it's this place. Going to Mecca was the most peaceful experience of my life, and I cannot wait to go for Umrah one day. It's going to be incredible every single time. If you go, you'll know what I mean. It's truly spectacular. The next step that you want to do is called the wax paper transfer method. I use this technique from a Craftsy tutorial that I took with Jessica Harris. This technique worked out so well for creating the design on the Kaaba and is genius. I started by drawing out the design I wanted for the 3 sides of the cake. I drew out one design for 3 sides of the cake on one piece of paper and the front of the Kaaba on another piece of paper, being sure to measure out the sides to match the dimensions of the cake. Tape down your stencil to the table. Then line up your wax paper with the bottom of the stencil, creating a straight edge at the bottom. Make sure to coat your wax paper with a very thin coat of shortening first. Then place on your fondant pieces on one by one to fit within the stencil. Remember, the bottom side of the wax paper will actually be the top, so make sure your best side and the side with the designs are at the bottom. That way, once you put them onto the cake, they will be right side up. I created the bottom part with the brick plastic mold. The Kaaba actually looks different every single year depending on what the fabric on top looks like and whether you can see the brick at the bottom or not. For this one, I decided to show a bit of the brick. Once you're ready to put it on the cake, coat the fondant pieces with a tiny bit of shortening so that they will stick to the cake. Line up the bottom of the wax paper with the bottom of the cake and gently place them onto the cake. When you're happy with where they'll sit, push them slightly harder to make sure that they won't move. Then remove the wax paper slowly from the cake, ensuring that the pieces are all stuck to the cake as you go. Then repeat for each side, making sure that the lines match up as you go. Then repeat this step for the front of the Kaaba using your stencil. You can wipe away any excess shortening once you're done. If you would like to see my travels, please let me know. I really hope to start a travel channel soon just to show you my experiences around the world. And I would love to open one, except I really can't come up with a name. So if you have any ideas for what I should call my channel, please let me know in the comments below. I made the hatim out of fondant with a bit of tiles in it. The hatim is a low wall that is originally part of the Kaaba that is a semicircle but is not actually connected to the Kaaba. I made this and let it harden. I also made the Maqam Ibrahim, which is a large stone block on which the Prophet Ibrahim stood while building the upper walls of the Kaaba. I made this using fondant and then painted it with gold luster dust. I then painted all of the fondant details by mixing some gold luster dust and lemon extract together. The last finishing touches is to make the black stone. I did this by creating a tiny little gray stone out of gray fondant and then making a small black ball and rolling it in edible black sparkles and placing it right in the middle of the gray stone. Finally, I accented the cake with Wilton's 3-inch pillars. And that's it. There you have it, a cake that looks like the Kaaba. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and you like this cake, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet seen my last videos, click here to watch it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel right over here. If you were fortunate enough to go for Hajj this year, Hajj Mubarak and Eid Ul Adha to everybody else. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.